17th, 2025, and sugarcane will return to Coca-Cola in the United States thanks to Donald Trump. And that's an interesting situation, I guess, of all the things to focus on, right? Like sugarcane, sure. I guess it's good news. There are other things going on, the Epstein list. Trump is torching his base, et cetera, et cetera. And whatever. We'll see how it all turns out, I guess. I wasn't holding out hope for the Epstein list at the beginning. I said, in order to release this list, they need to back it up with investigations. You can't release the list because the list, who knows about chain of custody? Who knows about, there's a whole lot of very concerning questions. So it's one of those things where I look at it and I think, I don't think that this is really what we think it is. Anyway, I digress. Ostrich farm update. I've got an ostrich farm update for you. The RFK Jr. is weighing in on this again. Fentanyl, again, Donald Trump scheduling fentanyl as Schedule 1. And so what will that do to trade in Canada? It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see if it makes an impact. I think it will. I think it's kind of dark horse news that most people haven't heard about. And I think that it's going to be impactful in a way that Canada's not expecting. It might take us by surprise. We'll see. We'll see how that all changes what's going on, because it's well known, it seems, among three-letter agencies, CSIS, all of that, that Mexico and China are working together through Canada to flow drugs in, and nobody's taking accountability for it in Canada. So I think this is going to be a bigger deal than it looks, and nobody's talking about it because our media is not doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. They work for the government. The UK is going to lower the voting age. Actually, they already have. I think the Starmer regime, the way it's structured, the way it's reading in the reports is that it's already done. And in the next general election, the UK will have a 16-year-old voting age. Wild, absolutely wild. Hockey Canada and gender ideology. I've got some updates on that. X and Corn and an AI assistant that is dressed in very provocative ways and is like an anime corn bot, which is super weird, super duper weird. And we're going to talk about that. And I mean, what kind of damage would that do to a 15-year-old, 18-year-old, 25-year-old kid? You know what I mean? And I don't mean to be saying 25-year-olds are kids, but man, the older I get, right? The older kids get, I don't know. Niagara Falls, and we're going to start with the invasion ongoing in the West. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Niagara Falls and what's going on in across, not just Niagara Falls, but across the West is absolutely jaw-dropping. Today we're going to start in Niagara Falls. And actually, I forgot about this meme. So we actually have to start with this. This is real. As far as I understand it, this is real. This isn't even a clip. If it's a clip, it's hilarious. If it's a fake clip and they're making fun of somebody, it's funny. But if it's absolutely real, and I think this is real, it's even more funny. So here is a lawmaker. Sorry, I've already done this. I don't know who this lawmaker is, but he's welcoming people to the State Department, and he can't even get through the statement and without absolutely gutting himself laughing. So it's funny. Here we go.
Anyway, welcome to the State Department. I think we have some interns in the back. Welcome. Good to see you in this exercise in transparency and democracy.
Is that what it is?
Sorry,
I thought it was
an
exercise in spin and obfuscation.
So he's just laughing his way through it. Hilarious. And I mean, like, I think that was a pretty genuine laugh. I don't know if he was even forcing it. So transparency and democracy. Killing himself. Guts himself on camera there. Hilarious. That's kind of how I feel about everything at this point in time. Like, it feels like the people at the podium know what they're saying is absolutely nonsense. And we know what they're saying is absolutely nonsense. Why are we all playing this game at this point in time? Holy smokeroni. But here we go. And we're going to play this more, and we're going to kill ourselves laughing about this. Here is Antonio, and he says, there's no words for this, Canada, but it's not just Canada. It's not just Niagara Falls. Now, I've been talking about Niagara Falls. I went to school in Welland, and we used to go down to Niagara Falls. Sometimes I didn't go to the clubs in Niagara Falls very often. I went to the casinos. I went to walk up and down Clifton Hill, et cetera, et cetera. And in the early 2000s, which is when I went to college, it was, a lot of the demographics around Clifton Hill were very different than they are now. What are they now? Mostly Chinese, Indian, and there are no old stock Canadians whatsoever. This guy's walking around. The caption on the clip is, "Where are the white people?" So there's no old stock Canadians at all. He says, Are you Canadian? Are you Canadian? Are you Canadian? Nobody's Canadian. And man, trying to get into a restaurant in a couple of the places on Clifton Hill, they will refuse you entry if your female companions are not appropriately dressed in full Afghan garb, right? And so I don't know the names off the top of my head. Hijab, niqab, whatever, all the rest. So here's this guy. He's walking around in Niagara Falls, I think recently. It seems very recently, and he's like, "Where's all the white people?"
Because I see only Indians are here. Look at that Indians back. You see the Indians? Everywhere I go, it's Indians. I see only what Japanese do. You see, all of them are Indians. Where are the Canadians? Where are this man is an Indian. This man is an Indian. They all are Indian. This guy's an Indian. Look at that. He's looking at me. Where are the Indians and Canadians, man? Excuse me. Are you Canadian? He's not Canadian either. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. See, I'm in New Delhi right now, but this is nice.
So, and it carries on and it goes on. He is pointing out an uncomfortable truth. What happens? Okay, let's do a quick thought experiment. What happens if you have a First Nations reservation, and then people who are displaced by the newcomers start moving into the reservation, right? Like, how long before people start noticing the demographic change? How long is that acceptable, right? And why can an entire population of a town change, Brampton, and nobody seems to have any kind of problem with it? The whole GTA is, what's the percentage? Foreign born is something like 55% or something like that, 60%. It's very high. It's unbelievable. And so at what point is anybody going to point this out and say, is this the direction we want to go, rather than calling names and things like that? Do we want to be wholesale replaced from a country that has billions of people? We have 40 million people as a total population of Canada. India has 1.4 billion people. 100 million people is nothing to them. Okay, nothing. Like, would they notice, right? So, we could easily get swamped. India wouldn't notice, and would Canada? Economically, it's the path of least resistance. I think we're in a Ponzi scheme, and if the government stopped bringing people in and had those people stop buying houses, cars, and all the stuff you need to set up your house, I think our economy would tank in a way that, like, the 1930s would look like a picnic, because they knew how to grow food and we don't. And so, like, I think that we would be in a bad situation if our economy tanks and so on. So I think that the government is incentivized to continue doing what we're doing. That's why I say it's the path of least resistance. And if people say, hey, have you noticed this? Have you been to Niagara Falls? Then they get branded racist. And that's not the point, right? And so you can't solve a problem if you're just looking for racists, right? Like, holy cow. Meanwhile, in Greece, let's move away from Canada. It's not like it's just happening in Canada. What's going on in Greece? Concerned citizen says military vessel docks to offload another 1,000 illegal unknown fighting age men as people on the beach look on in absolute bewilderment. Government could stop this overnight. Instead, they actively assist with bringing in unknowns. The destruction of Europe is intentional, planned, well coordinated, and funded by those with unlimited resources. So that's the reason we can't talk about it. You understand? And that's the reason we are called racist. If we point these things out and say, is this really the direction we want to go? Well, that's even positing that question is racist, Mark. Is it? You think? Holly Doan says record immigration accounts for 11 to 21% of inflation in housing prices, according to the Immigration Canada research, contradicts claims of racism by legislators who dismiss connection between shelter costs and immigration levels. So it doesn't matter that somebody calls somebody racist. The material reality is, the data says that record immigration accounts for 11 to 21% of the inflation, at least. So their accusations of racism are to cover for the fact that what we're saying is exactly right. What we're saying is we need to stop. Holy cow. And return people home. That's, I think, what's going on. Viktor Orban is weighing in on all of this. He says Remix News says Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban says he has seen other European countries fall to mass immigration and he will not allow Hungary to follow the same path. where's Canada's Viktor Orban, right? Like, oh my gosh. If you let immigrants in, this is a quote attributed to Viktor Orban, if you let immigrants in and legalize their residence, they become part of our society, even if they are not like you, different in appearance, language, and values, but here to stay. From that moment on, there is no turning back. I hope that's... sounds very foreboding. Here is the student, is he Sudanese? The Minneapolis mayor candidate, Omar Fatah, says the real domestic threat is, you guessed it. Well, he says they look like everybody in the front row, and everybody in the front row is white. So, and he's talking here about the real danger comes from, he says it, hold on.
We heard them being called terrorists. We heard them being called drug dealers.
Yeah.
We heard a lot of insults. We heard that they're a threat to our national security. And that's a flat out lie. You want to know who the real threat is, Madam President? I'll give you a hint. They don't look like our chief author. They don't look like the folks up in the gallery. They don't look like the folks on the rotunda. They look like many of the members that sit in the front. And you don't have to take my word for it. According to DHS, Madam President, the greatest domestic threat facing the United States comes from, quote, racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocate for the superiority of the white race, not our immigrants. We are safer and we're better off because of them.
Right? So the ideologically motivated violent extremists, the racially ideologically motivated violent extremists. Do you remember when that came in? I remember reporting on it and saying, this is inverting the reality. They brought in extremism to combat against Islamic extremism, right? And now they're saying, oh, hold on a second. It's not just Islamic extremism. It's right-wing extremism now too. Ideological racially motivated violent extremism. And thanks for the chat. He's from Somalia. Yes, I appreciate that, right? Somalia. And yeah, it's interesting because Michigan brought them in as a proxy for the CIA to get footing in that area of the world. And so this impact, do you think it's positive or negative on the United States, right? I think that's probably a net negative. I think that if you showed somebody from Minneapolis, Minnesota, what's going on from 1950, what's going on today, they'd probably have a big problem with it, right? And so that's interesting because how can that happen so fast, right? Niagara Falls, ring, ring. Here's what's going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Libs of TikTok is sharing this video. Here we go.
Please mark out once we bury them, inshallah. Then we'll go ahead and open for the sisters. Please go back, sisters. Please. Inshallah. We're delaying the process. Sisters, please go back.
So if you're just listening, it's a huge gathering of Somali people, I guess, and they're talking about us and them and things like that. It's concerning, right? Because groups like this who hate America and who hate the West can gather with impunity, and other groups are not allowed, right? Not allowed at all. Here is Michael O'Keefe. He's talking about Dublin, and he says the Irish are currently protesting at government buildings after news broke that the EU intends to force Ireland to pay damages to unhoused asylum seekers. Homeless asylum seekers are going to get paid damages because the EU intends to force Ireland to pay them, while Irish people awaiting housing have no such right. Isn't that crazy? Like, that's pretty crazy stuff. The whole thing, pretty crazy. And in line with all of this is an increase in political power for the migrant class through their children. How, you ask? UK is allowing voting for 16 and 17 years, 16 years old. Age of voting is lowered to 16 in Britain for the next general election. Voting age to be lowered to 16 years old in UK, across the UK by the next general election is, according to BBC, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't have the attribution there. But I've got lots more on this. Govpolitics.uk is saying breaking 16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in the next general election. They want to bring this to Canada. I promise you that. Here is Keir Starmer, and he's talking about 16 and 17-year-olds. But Fredo says the proportion of people under 18 who are not ethnically British, one foreign parent or more, currently sits at around 43%. Whilst children born to two foreign parents sits at around 25%. This number will only increase in the 4 years to come. We're being replaced. And here's Starmer talking about giving political power to people 16 years of age or older. Here we go.
I think it's really important that 16 and 17-year-olds have the vote because they're old enough to go out to work. They're old enough to pay taxes, so to pay in. And I think if you pay in, you should have the opportunity to say what you want your money spent on, which way the government should go. So I'm really pleased that we're able to bring more young people into our democracy and give them the chance to have a say over how their taxes are going to be paid and what they're going to be used for. I think it's really important that 16 and...
We get a say in what our taxes are used for? Since when? I'm pretty sure they've shoveled a whole lot of billions to Ukraine, and I didn't want a single cent spent on foreign wars. Thanks very much. Here's Bernie. She's highlighting this, and this is in the UK as well, but it shows a window into what our government is probably going to try to implement. Bernie says, free speech, the net is closing in. There is no need for a definition to protect a religion, but they will do it simply to stop your right to criticize or question the changing face of our country. Sinister. So freedom threat, this is the article that she's responding to. Labor's like the Liberal government, plans for Islamophobia definition are aimed at shutting down free speech, warns ex-Equalities chief. This is Trotsky-esque entryism. It's designed to stifle speech. Yes. Wasn't Trotsky Russian? The irony, isn't it? Charlotte Gill is talking about all of this, and this goes to the kids being allowed to vote as well. This is... the charity targets kids, and Charlotte's highlighting this charity that Sadiq Khan uses to get elected. And people in the chat are saying that this is the children, the 16-year-old, and not being added to the electorate is a way to make it easier for the left to rig elections, and I completely agree. They'll have them held in high schools, and every kid in every high school across the country will vote. Yes, they'll rig it. Yes, absolutely, they'll rig it. Every day on the announcements, it'll be like a competition. People will be alienated if they're voting the wrong way, and all sorts of stuff. It'll be terrible, and they want it to happen. They want it to go this way. Mayor of London Sadiq Khan says closing our door to global talent would seriously damage our economy. Oh, this isn't that one yet. Sorry. We must not make it harder for international students to come here. And Charlotte says, here's an idea. How about every British person just leaves and our homes can go to the international community? That's what our leaders want, isn't it? Apart from the small issue of how to pay for it. Yes. They want to steal all your stuff. This is the charity I was talking about. Charlotte says, this is the charity set up by Alastair Campbell and Mette Corbin, Sadiq Khan's deputy, being used to push youth votes. So My Life says is 16 is the latest version of the movement to extend the franchise and grant 16 and 17-year-olds the right to vote. We're proud to have support of our partners from across the democracy sector and beyond. So V16 has been pushed by all of these partners, and it looks just like the NGO structure that I talk about in Canada. It looks just like all of the concerning, well, the government wants to do something, but it can't do something legally, so it pays NGOs to push that thing or to bring court cases and things like that, and then it relents and says, oh, well, the public wanted it, so we have to do it anyway. Same thing here. And it favors the Labour government, and it's a terrible, awful idea. And I think that there's a lot of very tactical reasoning behind it from a enfranchisement aspect. So you take young kids and you teach them to vote, and you teach them to vote Labour, and then they're lifelong Labour voters, right? And then you even better, right? Like that's one. Even better, get the children of migrants who then feel like this is their chance to really, impact things. And like, not only do you get a new Labour voter, you get them for life, right? And so my gosh, it's pretty wild stuff, really, honestly. Let's do our grab bag of governance. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get through all of it, but we'll try. And Blanchette, and for whatever reason, I'm very upset with X. The speed controls aren't working. It doesn't matter if it's a 2 or 1 or anything like this. It doesn't work, or it hasn't been working this morning, and it's been driving me effing bonkers. I swear. It is unbelievable. I'm like, no, this is not acceptable. X, holy cow. Anyway, the Buck UL is quoting Yves Francois Blanchette, and he's a con man, says Blanchette. I do not agree with Quebec's politics, demands, and welfare grifting, but I am absolutely agreeing with Blanchette's ongoing public assessment of Carney. He's the only one calling it like it is, and I do agree. I'm very confident it's going to be at 1 speed. Here we go.
Carney has told us that his intention and his conviction was that he would be able to re-establish a trade agreement that he was defining as being a free trade agreement. He was going to meet, he met with the U.S. president, and then he thought there would be an agreement that would end the tariffs, and it would be a preamble to a healthy negotiating process before the G7, and that didn't happen. All of this with different publications on President Trump's social media, and then it became July 1st. That didn't happen. Then, July 21st, we understand that there will be no agreement, and now we're talking about August the 1st. This is unilaterally decreed by the U.S. president, and he's saying that the letter, his letter announcing tariffs and maintaining tariffs, would be, in fact, the trade agreement. Unfortunately, we are confronted with being deceived. We have been deceived because Mr. Carney is not at all delivering. In his great wisdom as a negotiator, that he had spoken of himself to be elected during the campaign. He has made important concessions with regards to border protections, and he announced huge investments in defense on the principle, and this is interesting, and as the PBO has said, we are on the road to a very concerning situation. He dropped retaliatory tariffs, which could have had an influence in coordination with other countries. He dropped the tax on the internet giants, the digital tax. So he's made all the compromises without obtaining anything in return.
Right. And so it's very interesting. Blanchette seems to be the only one, to be honest. And Polyev is just MIA. It's very interesting to watch that, by the way. Mark Carney is here, and he is saying Canada has the potential to become its own best customer. And it's a load of nonsense, really. It's time to build, he says, with Canadian steel. But not that long ago, he was saying, who needs Canadian steel? Here's Mark Carney saying, who buys Canadian steel? Do you buy Canadian steel? Who needs Canadian steel? Here we go.
Products that we are consuming. A steel company, how much steel are you using these days, Todd? But the large...
None, right? None, Todd. Nobody needs steel until all of a sudden we need Canadian steel to build back better with Canadian steel. Here we go.
Canada has what the world needs. We're becoming an energy superpower. And we are a leader in the building blocks of a modern economy. From high value added steel to aluminum to critical minerals and artificial intelligence. And Canadians have just given...
Why is he claiming artificial intelligence? Anything? Like, we don't... What's the big Canadian artificial intelligence? Grok? Like, Elon Musk is ours now. Just, that's us. Canada. Rock. Good job, Elon Musk. What Canadian AI? Evan Solomon? Come on, right? Give me a break. What does Canada do for AI? What's the thing that Canada does that it does better than anybody else in AI? Is there a link somewhere? Like, we've invested a lot of money. Great. We've invested a lot of money in EV batteries too, and we look like idiots. So is that it? Is that all you've got?
Governments, the mandate to build big things. Nation-building projects that will transform our economy. We have the potential to become our own best customer for steel, But we will lose that ability if we don't manage the profound transformation now underway in the industry. And to do that, we have to change the way we do things so we can better support our companies and our workers during this time of change.
Right. So change is coming, probably in the form of more tariffs. Get ready for it, because nobody needs steel anyway, says Mark Carney. We'll be our own best customer. What nonsense. We're terrible customers. We don't. I think Canada doesn't understand business at a very basic level. Most of the people in government are managing budgets. They have no idea how to manage. And I think they're mostly out of their depth, period. And realistically, we need to get rid of hundreds of MPs at this point in time. We need like a council of 10 people running the country at the federal level. It's very expensive to have hundreds of MPs. And what kind of representation does your MP really give you? Honestly, like, do you feel represented by your MP? Do you feel like you get value for that money? Because I sure as heck don't. Okay. Dan Albus says, Minister, perhaps, he's responding to Francois Philippe Champagne. He says, we're strengthening Canada's steel industry, curbing foreign imports with tightening TRQs and 25% tariffs on steel melted import in China, investing $1 billion in producers and workers, and mandating procurement to source domestics so that nation-building projects are made with Canadian steel. That's a lie. That's not true, right? Dan Albus says, Minister, perhaps you've forgotten, but you are investing $1 billion to benefit a Chinese state shipyard, workers, and the Chinese steel industry. That's the reality. And Globe and Mail says Federal Infrastructure Bank provided $1 billion loan for BC Ferries to buy Chinese-made ships. Great use of money, right? And Canadian steel. Womp womp, right? Like, this is not true at all. Here is Wiretap Media noting Mark Carney. I don't know what his mouth thing is, the eating his own lips. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but Wiretap Media says Mark Carney holds back laughter and gives the camera a smug smile resembling the Grinch after Walt Kupler mentions his company helped build the Brookfield Towers in Toronto. We are not voting our way out of this tyranny, Canada. Yeah. There's too much money to be made and too many players who've got their finger in the pie, and they're looking around going, who cares? Like, let's do it again. And they do it again, and then people get angry but don't do anything, and then they say, let's do it again, and they do it again. Here's this. I think this is an announcement on what projects are actually getting started to become an energy superpower. And again, it's kind of laughable. Like, it's a very laughable prospect. Canada, we could be an energy superpower. Let's just build pipelines and get LNG to Tidewater to supply Europe, and we'd be an energy superpower almost overnight as soon as that pipeline was built. Bingo, bango, bongo. But instead, we've got Brookfield building buildings with new steel or some kind of environmental steel or something like that. Here we go.
We transform it into the backbone of iconic projects across the country, including these projects. The Halifax shipyards building vessels for Defence Canada. The Brookfield Towers in Toronto using advanced high-star grades. The Brookfield Towers in Toronto using advanced high.
Honestly. Oh, and it's gonna stop playing anyway. It's interesting to me that Mark Carney doesn't have control of his facial expressions. You learn that early in a poker career, and you'd think the smartest banker this side of the U.S., I don't know, Mason-Dixon line or whatever, would have a poker face, but I guess not, right? Mark Carney does not have a poker face whatsoever. Holly Doan is reporting Canadians are so accustomed to gas price fluctuations they'll never notice a significant increase under new fuel regulations, according to AAFC Canada, and that's, I don't know what that acronym is, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. Agriculture Canada predict the clean fuel standard by 2030 will add 13 cents a litre to a litre of gasoline. 13 cents tax increase. So lucky us. Still not as expensive as the personal carbon tax, but it's creeping up there already. It was $1.37 yesterday or something like that, randomly. And it's backed off a little bit in Guelph, but again, they're inching things up. Wiretap Media again says, does anyone remember the time when a carjacker broke into Mark Carney's car while he was in a meeting to steal classified security documents, but left the car behind? Thief carjacks ex-Goldman and head of Canada's central bank, Mark Carney's car and steals classified documents. Where did he carjack the car to? Nowhere? Just left the car? I just wanted the documents. This article is more than 15 years old. Mark Carney, Bank of Canada governor, has secret documents stolen from car. I remember when people were saying Maxime Bernier was a risk because similar issues in 2004, 2005 or something like that. So it's interesting, right? Current Prime Minister and Maxime Bernier share something in common. Did the Hells Angels have something to do with it? Who knows? Globe and Mail is reporting this CRA call center employees are vulnerable to job cuts under Carney's cost-saving plan, the union says. And Mike says only 23% of small business owners contacting the CRA call center felt confident in the answers they received when they could understand them. Among CFIB's tax professionals members, 60% report they received different, conflicting, or wrong answers to their questions. Many have told me that their practice is to call the CRA call center 7 times and go with the answer they receive most often, according to Dan Kelly, president and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. If you make it hard for me to comply, I'm not going to comply. Like, honestly, if you make it difficult for me, why would I do it? Right? Like, oh no, they're going to get mad. Oh, well, I guess when they get mad at me, I'm going to get equally mad at them for making their process stupid, right? You want me to do it? Make it easy. Otherwise, nope. I'm busy, okay? I'm busy. Here's Tim Houston. He says he's responding to the city of Halifax potentially making a one-way road into, or a two-way road into a one-way road. And he said, that's this far and no farther. The F you will. Not going to happen. Okay, so he says, as Premier, I have a responsibility to stand up for Nova Scotians who are concerned with ever worsening traffic problems in Halifax. I won't stand by as decisions are made that will make their lives worse. If HRM Council proceeds with increasing congestion by making Morris a one-way street, the provincial government will be forced to act. We will step in and we will crush you. If I was Doug Ford, if you're in Ontario, I know for a fact you've been driving around and you've noticed 40 kilometer an hour speed signs going up on roads that used to be 70 kilometers an hour plus. So I was driving near a city that's near me, and I was like, this last week this street was 60 and you drove 70 on it. Now they want you to drive 40 on it? Give me a break. And people, if I was Doug Ford, I would crush this. I would say you are not allowed to reclassify all the roads in your city to be 40 kilometers an hour, regardless of the need. Because there are people who get out there and they will drive slowly just to virtue signal. I had somebody driving 35 kilometers an hour in front of me, and I went to pass them and they sped up to prevent me from passing. I was like, I just went faster because I was like, dude, you are not going to get in front of me. I'm not playing this game. And then I won the game. But it's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. And I have zero tolerance for virtue signaling drivers. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's ridiculous. Get over yourselves, for crying out loud. Anyway, Doug Ford should act on this because it's intolerable. Terry says Hockey Canada is demanding coaches take radical gender tests, ignores the on-ice reality. Coaching staff told that gender diverse players can move to teams and dressing rooms of opposite sex based solely on self-identification. How about nope? We'll make our own hockey club with sane rules and no gender ideology. How about that? Drea says, Ostrich Farm News, RFK Jr. just sent a second letter, this time to Canada's AG ministers, urging to stop the CFIA's cull order and allow the Americans to take over the research if we won't. Where's Mark Carney's elbows up economy on this one? So that's pretty interesting. It's interesting that they're sending letters. It's dated July 15th.